Netflix for news, Stranger Things, duh, and Mindhunter, awesome. Plus, they get this Sabrina reboot from the CW, and Kevin Williamson gives CBS a happy ending. That, tonight at 11.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. All right. Na, 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 na. Sorry, this is taking me back to a good time where it was okay to put a ladder up into a girl's window.
Yeah.
You know, but it's 2017, guys, and that's just not okay anymore.
Not okay.
You know, hashtag me too. All right, I've made enough inappropriate jokes,
Yeah.
so I guess I'll now have to say my name. It's Lacretia Lyon. It's
Look her up.
You can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one. But I am not alone today. I have my lovely co-host to my left.
Hey everyone, this is Chauncey Robinson, and you can find me on Twitter at Miss Chauncey KR.
All right, guys, and we're just going to get into it because there's a lot of news this week, but I want to start out with the thing I am most excited about, and I've been most excited about this since the day that it was announced because I love Christopher Meloni so much. He is one of my favorite actors, and thank you, Rachel Harris, for that whole Tumblr of those pictures about his butt. But, you know, before I digress, he's got a show coming out on Sci-Fi Channel on Wednesday. That is December 6th at 9 p.m. It is called Happy. It's based on the Grant Morrison graphic novel. And it also stars Patton Oswalt doing the voice of the lovely, happy little imaginary friend here. I don't think that you need this trailer, but I'm going to give it to you anyway after that sweet recap. Here you go, guys.
There's an ever-swirling toilet that just won't flush. I don't think I can die.
Hard to believe this piece.
I've been watching the
used to be the
Unstabler
best detective
marathon on
in all the
USA all day, but and this trailer has played in every commercial break, but I still enjoy watching it.
Looks super intense.
Well,
I died.
Can I just say I love this already?
yeah,
I
that,
do. I really do. Like, I have a good sense about, you know, what I like. Like the yellow font across the screen too.
yeah, like just the coloring of it is perfect. It's very dark, and it's almost like very cable as in AMC, not sci-fi.
I was
Yeah,
about to
exactly.
say.
It's a very,
Yeah.
very, very AMC style
Yeah.
to it.
Like the filter that they use is very cinematic, you know.
Yeah.
It does not look like it's not bright like a sitcom or anything that would come out of like the CW. This definitely reads at AMC. I'm so surprised this is on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
But I hope that that's a good thing in a way, because that means that they might be able to do some things that, you know, Sci-Fi has taken a chance on the show.
I am going to remove your penis in thin slices, like salami.
It's gonna take you a long time. If you know what I mean.
I'm so down for this.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
This looks super
You
intense.
gotta ask yourself, do you feel lucky?
Whoops. I pooped. You are really bad at driving.
Disagree. Look at all the traffic we have later. Merry Christmas.
You know, just in time for the holidays.
Yeah. I think you can actually, I know on Sci-Fi On Demand, they were showing like the pilot of it already. So I think some people can actually watch it. I haven't had a chance to, but it looks super intense. Like they're mixing up the happy-go-lucky music with him basically shooting and killing people.
You know, and that's what I love. I mean, ever since, you know, I saw Clockwork Orange when I was a little girl, I've always loved,
I
you
can't
know,
sit through
happy
that. I can't sit through. That's the one movie I
Yeah.
can't sit through.
Rain.
Yeah.
I love that.
It is disturbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and now I'm just like, all right, guys, the show's over. If she says it's on Sci-Fi right now, I'm just gonna go home and watch that.
No,
you know,
Sci-Fi
never
On
mind.
Demand.
Yeah.
I keep seeing that they're showing the pilot of it.
Yeah.
So they may have already letting some people look at it, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Actually, you should watch it tonight, probably.
I know. That's why I'm like, that's exactly what I'm doing. We're going to hurry up through the rest of this news. And all right, guys, let's just get this started then so I can go home and watch happy. Because Netflix has renewed Stranger Things, which is a duh. Did we really think that wasn't going to happen?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they on their Twitter, on their official Twitter, Netflix was like, should we renew it? And it was like, well, is that really a question that we have some type of control over? No.
Yeah, and then too, they renewed Mindhunter, which has done really well, which I have yet to catch up on. Same thing with the last season of Stranger Things, but you know, I've got my binge now that the CW stuff is ending this week. I can kind of get into this as I'm watching Happy as well. But yeah, Mindhunter I hear is great. Jonathan Groff plus David Fincher.
Him.
Yeah, he's just amazing. Does he get to sing in it?
Probably not.
Yeah.
He should. He should sing everywhere all the time.
Yeah. If there was just a show where he was singing and like. Hold on, they should make an American Psycho musical starring Jonathan Groff.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
That is a really good idea.
Another happy music, because then I'm like thinking of like Huey
that
Lewis
was a really
in the
good
news
movie.
and murdering people.
One of my faves.
Yeah, it's great, and that was written and directed by women. Just so people.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the screenplay, the books, you know, Bret Easton Ellis, of course, but.
Yeah, because they did a sequel, I think, which was American Psycho in college.
Yeah, where it's Mila Kunis and William Shatner is her professor that she kills. Yeah, spoiler alert, but trust me, I'm saving you a lot, guys. It's worth a good laugh if you're high to watch that movie, but that would be the only circumstances you should ever see this. But yeah, but things you should see is Sabrina's getting a reboot that was supposed to be on the CW as a Riverdale spinoff, but Netflix has actually got it.
Yeah, it's actually getting 2 seasons. I guess a 10 and a 10 episode one, because they're getting 20 episodes total, but they're going to get 10 in the first season, probably 10 in the second season. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, because I was really excited when I'm like, oh, well, because we have Riverdale and Sabrina is part of that universe in the comics, it was cool to see them kind of like spread over into a multiverse with Riverdale as they sort of did with their other CW Berlanti shows. But it seems like that's not what we're getting, so now I'm a little like, okay, did we need it then?
Yeah, well, the thing is, Riverdale, and I think I was asking you before, like, I don't know if they've actually, like, opened the world up to, like, I know they talk about it being similar to Twin Peaks, and Twin Peaks sort of had that supernatural thing to it, but I don't know if Riverdale's gotten there yet, and it doesn't seem like they're getting there. They're still kind of sticking with the whole dark and sexy, but it's mostly just, like, family drama and killings. I don't know.
Yeah, and Jughead and Bughead. I ship that. Yeah, but
okay. I mean, they switched up his sexuality. That's kind of controversial, but
yeah, because I did love my Jughead being asexual, but you know, Cole Sprouse is just adorable. So they're like, well, you know, and at least they don't over-sexualize the character, which they
don't over-sexualize his character. They over-sexualize everybody else, which is kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's one of those things with these reboots where it's like, and the same thing is my issue with Sabrina a little bit, because they're like, you know, this is darker and sexier, and I'm still remembering my childhood of Melissa Joan Hart, and I'm like, do we need darker and sexier and something about the occult? Like, they're literally saying, like, in one of the articles I'm reading, is that it's a coming of age story of coming up and the occult. That's not a thing. Is it?
I went through a Wiccan phase.
All right.
I really did. The other kids weren't allowed to hang out with me.
Coming of age, though? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's based off, well, it's actually not based off of the Melissa Joan Hart and the old Archie comic type one. It's actually based off of the another reimagining in the form of the comic book series, which was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I think it was just called Sabrina or something.
Yeah, I think it was just called Sabrina, and it was sort of like the Riverdale version of Archie, but it was a comic version. Because, that's the thing, is Riverdale is like a sexy Archie. And it was like, okay, if you want to do a sexy Sabrina in this thing, it kind of made sense if it was a multiverse.
Yeah.
And if they'd introduced it like was the plan last season, she was supposed to be in the last episode, and they kind of discussed that. I mean, and they've talked, they've been to her town and everything, but,
Yeah, and I mean, with this one, I mean, if it's based off of the comics, and I do remember I read one of the first issues of the comics before, and the first thing I thought, honestly, when I read it, I was like, okay, so this is like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but she's a witch, and you know, she's dealing with the Satan, Satan, and I was like, okay, but my one issue, I was like, and I guess my one issue with even the Riverdale verse, and what I'm worried might happen with this one is, you know, there's a certain, and not to be cheesy because I love horror, but even in horror, like there's a certain, with Archie and with the Sabrina, there's a certain joy that the characters always had, like a certain hope, not cheesy necessarily, but a certain, like, you know, even when things get really crappy, we're still cool. And like, I feel like even with Riverdale, it's so, I mean, for lack of a better term, like emo a little bit in terms of how Archie is. And I'm like, why is Archie so emo? And I'm afraid they're going to do the same thing with Sabrina. And I'm just like, okay, she can battle the Satan or whatever like that, which is, you know, fine. As long as we get Harvey in there, because that was my ship, Sabrina and Harvey. But you know, it's one of the things, like, is it going to be really, like, kind of semi-depressing feeling, like Riverdale kind of has me feeling. So I'm a little worried they might go that route.
Yeah, I would hope that it has the same tone as the Flash first couple seasons and Supergirl, where they are very light, you know, and that's the thing, is you can have dark storylines, but, you know, God, how many times am I going to talk about this? How James Gunn always does it. I'm just metaphorically just giving James Gunn a blowjob on every podcast this week. I apologize. But yeah, like how his tone is for Guardians, you know, especially the second one. You can have all these dark things, but there has to be these light, fun moments, and it's just capturing that tone.
Yeah, and I guess my worry is that they won't be able to do that because of what I've seen with Riverdale so far. It's just, I don't know, every time I see a sizzle clip of Riverdale, I think Archie's just looking more and more disheveled and just down in the dumps. And I'm like, isn't his character supposed to be the kind of the heart of the show? You're supposed to root for him most of the time. And I'm like, if they do that with his character, Archie, this iconic character that kind of ties everything together, they may do the same thing with Sabrina. And I'm also wondering who they're going to cast.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is a lot of people have suggested, and I'm going to go look up her name, which I should have already done, but the young woman, really, who played Kara in the Supergirl flashback from this season.
Oh, okay.
There's been some talk about her being a good fit for Sabrina, and at least from that episode, I could see that. But yeah, like you say, I mean, why does Archie have to be emo? He should be Ray Palmer, like on Legends.
Yeah.
Like, Ray deals with all sorts of crap, and he's always like,
and
still
that
the
would
hidden
make
mother.
this show way more Archie-like. That would make Riverdale way more Archie-like if you let it so that Archie was this character that still was this beacon of kind of hope in this very dreary Riverdale. And I think it should be the same thing with Sabrina. Someone's got to have a little bit of lightness to it. If nothing else, it becomes this kind of, you know, this thing with these shows where, you know, the young people, it's kind of overly sexualized a little bit, and it's just very dark. And it's like, that's not Archie or Sabrina to me. So
yeah, and two, I mean, you have shows like Supernatural is still on the network. It's not always dark.
Exactly.
Buffy was not always dark.
No.
I mean, Buffy had a lot of fun episodes.
Exactly.
And the actress's name that was young Kara is Isabella Vidovic. I mean, yeah, she had looked the part for sure and could definitely take those emotional beats. So yeah, I'd be curious if they wind up casting her.
Yeah, and they're actually also saying that that they may also try to get Melissa Joan Hart to make an appearance.
Kind of like Helen Slater,
Yeah.
you know, with Supergirl. And that's what Berlanti does best, is sort of bring these people back in a capacity. And it would be great to see, you know, maybe she be, if they want to do it sort of like the Sabrina the series, maybe one of the aunts, or, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if they had like a callback to the show that we knew and loved from ABC. But we'll see like how much will fit into it, because Melissa Joan Hart did say at one time when she did an interview some time ago, if she would do a reboot, she'd probably do Clarissa Explains It All, hence the opening music we had. But it'd be cool to see her in there. I just also hope she doesn't come on and she's like some dark villain or something. I'm like, I don't know, it's my childhood a little bit. Just like, don't totally mess it up. Like, I'm all for reboots and reimaginings because they can be really fun when they're done right. But you do run the risk of kind of losing the heart of the source material, which, in my opinion, is what happened with Riverdale so far.
Yeah, and two, like the reimagining of Riverdale, as I say, I'm still in. I like the direction that they go in a lot of places, and the writing is still sharp, but it is very far from Archie. With Sabrina, it's already kind of a dark subject matter, so I don't know why they had to continue to pile on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have some people in the chat here. Poet Near the Castle was saying he or she was hoping it was set in the 60s, and Betty and Veronica cameo as part of the Riverdale Coven. Read Volume 1, Sabrina is trying to be normal, but something happens to Harvey and is manipulated by her father's ex. I'm like, that's interesting.
I hope nothing
Yeah.
happens to Harvey. Don't kill off
Yeah.
Harvey. That's all I want. Like, they're supposed to be in game no matter what verse you're in. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm just so worried when they reboot stuff. I mean, Riverdale just got me shook because when it first had I'm not ragging on Riverdale. I don't want anyone coming at me. The Riverdale fandom, you guys can be intense too. But like, but what I'm saying is that when I first saw it come out, it was like, okay, this is going to be kind of, dark and sexy, but they'll still have the essence of the characters. And that isn't happening. And I do worry that might be the case with Sabrina. So I guess it'll depend on who also, like you said, who they'll cast. Because if they can do a comedic thing, like Melissa Joan Hart also had a certain way about her that was this comedic kind of bubbly, but also a real kind of teenager as well. So we'll see if that actually happens.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is she was always able to capture both tones very well. Melissa Joan Hart is actually a great actress.
She is.
Yeah.
She got a new Hallmark movie out.
Yeah. I know, it's Christmas time. Who doesn't have a new Hallmark movie? I know, I saw, speaking of Ray Palmer, Brandon Routh has like one with him and cats, so I have to go immediately record that. Yeah.
All the 90s kids, actually, all the 90s and 2000s movie stars kind of have like Hallmark movies going out right now because Mario Lopez is actually in the movie with Melissa Joan Hart and Tatiana Ali.
Oh, I love Tatiana from
She just
Fresh
had Wrapped
Prince.
Up in Christmas recently on Hallmark as well.
And it's funny, not Mario Lopez, but Melissa Joan Hart and Tatiana Lee were both in Are You Afraid of the Dark, of course, which we'll talk about later, because I did find out where all the Midnight Society are.
Ha!
But we have a few more news bits to get to, because CBS is finally getting a fairy tale show after NBC had Grimm and ABC had Once Upon a Time. Kevin Williamson from, Scream fame is doing Tell Me a Story, which is they're sexing up this stuff.
I don't know how I feel about this one.
Sexy fairy tale show.
Actually, I love Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
I loved when he was on the Vampire Diaries, when he was kind of in charge afterwards. No comment on that, but when he was on it, it was great. And I also loved him for Dawson's Creek and, of course, Scream. So, I mean, I definitely feel like this in his hands will probably be will be great with dialogue and like the plot line. It's also weirding me out though that they're like, okay, from one of the articles, it's like the first season of the anthology series, fairy tales, and reimagine them as dark and twisted psychological thriller, and we'll interweave the Three Little Pigs. And I'm just like, what? Okay, it makes me curious, but it also makes me think I don't want sexy Three Little Pigs.
Yeah, like that's disturbing. Now, the Little Red Riding Hood thing, the original German story is pretty dark and sexy.
And we've seen movies reimagining of the Little Red Riding Hood.
Exactly. I'm
before.
like, you see slutty costumes and things, but please no Three Little Pigs. We don't need more slutty Halloween costume ideas or anything like that. We've got plenty. Leave the Three Little Pigs alone.
I'm just wondering, like, is it going to be this thing with the Three Little Pigs where they're like, maybe they're humans and they turn into pigs at night, but they're not like regular pink pigs.
They're
but
just
like
were-pigs.
Yeah, like were-pigs or something. And
played by Joe Manganiello. And who else is hot werewolves? Scott Speedman.
Yes.
I can't think of werewolves for some reason. Ooh, Tom Everett Scott.
I feel
That's
like that has to be the plot. How
Yeah.
else can you make this dark and psychological?
Now I'm like a sexy now that and we figured out a way to make them sexy. It's like cast some really good looking dudes.
Isn't that the way? That's the way.
It really is. Speaking of really good looking dudes, one of my favorites, Josh Segarra, who is on Chauncey's favorite show, Arrow. From last season.
She's lying. It's not my favorite show.
Yes. But yeah, like he was Adrian Chase in Arrow last season, and he's going to be in the new NBC Universal pilot based on a De Los Muertos thriller from Blumhouse, which sounds really cool. And I love Josh. Like, most of you would recognize him from Trainwreck if you don't watch Arrow, like a lot of people. I love it.
Ratings are down.
It's the best one right now, guys.
Okay. No, that should be interesting. I mean, I think what the plot line is, someone dies on the last day of Dia de los Muertos, which it's an interesting take, and hopefully they kind of tread lightly a little bit because of what Dia de los Muertos stands for in the culture. And it's a harkening back to ancestors and things of that nature. So hopefully it's just the idea that it happens on the last day and not necessarily like something like they're trying to make it like a voodoo type, kind of caricature of what that event actually stands for.
Yes, because too, especially, being culturally sensitive right now is very important. It is curious to see where they're going with this, but I do feel like NBC Universal does have a good track record with these shows, so that does help. And as I say, it's being called as NBC Universal because they're not sure if it's going to be on Sci-Fi or USA yet.
Oh, okay. I wonder which show which station it would be better on.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on if it goes too weird. They may put it on Sci-Fi. Like that really is like the line.
We see Happy's on Sci-Fi.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where they're gonna probably put a lot of stuff that they want to push the envelope a little bit.
And being Blumhouse, I see that. But with USA, they had the Sinner and Mr. Robot are also pretty good dark stories.
Yeah.
Just not as gory. So I'm guessing maybe it has to do with the level of violence they want to show.
Yeah.
In it. So
And then I'm guessing like they saw the reaction of how Coco did.
Oh yeah.
So maybe that might have something to do with the influence of ordering this series of Dia de los Muertos.
And that's true.
Yeah. I mean,
I like it. Hopefully there's more
Yeah.
to come out in this sort of vein,
Yeah, well, Coco, beat out Justice League at the movie theaters and whatnot. It got a really great response. So I guess it will definitely be in the vein of Hollywood to see something work and definitely like kind of jump on it. So
Yeah.
guess we'll see and how they'll take care of it or not.
Yeah, well, I think that is it for our news because, I'm really curious to see how that show works out. But you watch a lovely show on Sci-Fi called Ghost Wars.
Yes, I do. I watch Ghost Wars, and once again, I'm putting out a PSA that everyone else should be watching Ghost Wars as well. They recently had their latest episode, Two Graves. If you remember what I was recapping last week is that we thought Billy had died. He was knocking on death's door after he was electrocuted trying to bring the power back into the town. Well, it turns out Billy isn't exactly dead yet. It turns out he crossed over on the other side and he's a ghost for most of this episode, but Billy's heart is still beating, so he's not fully gone yet, but his body is fading fast. So basically, most of the episode was Billy dealing with trying to get back into his body. And there's a few other revelations that happen. Father Dan, he returns to the church, and he goes down to the basement where, that weird egg thing that somehow when people touch it, it gives them orgasmic pleasure and also eats them.
Sounds awesome.
He basically goes down there and gets his fix, and he's like touching it or whatnot. And then during that time, Roman is still processing the fact of what he learned the last episode, which was that the townspeople had ran his mother off and that his mother is dead. So basically, he confronts Ghost Billy because Ghost Billy goes to find him to get help to get back into his body, and he wonders why they ran off his mother. And Billy basically explains that his mother, who was a psychic, just like Billy, just like Roman was actually also blackmailing people in the town. So they got rid of her, or they more so pushed her out of the town because for her own safety to not get killed by any other townspeople that she was blackmailing. And, during all this, Dr. Landis is trying to wake Billy up. She loves them, professing her love. I ship these two, y'all. I want to see more of them. And basically, his body does wake up and we think it's Billy, but it's not. He's possessed, and basically he starts to try to kill her, and then real spirit Billy pops back up, fights him, gets back into his body. They have a beautiful moment. It's awesome. And then Roman goes to try to shoot the priest, Father Dan, for, running off his mother. And then he, his mother comes and confronts him and says, I forgive everybody. Although Roman is saying he doesn't forgive everyone. And basically it ends with the creepy possessed little girl, Abigail, spitting up eggs that are connected to the orgasmic egg thing in the basement, and that's probably something evil like Satan's seed or something. And the show ends there.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Well, it's spoil. yes, it is.
Well, yeah, now I have to watch this show because I will admit, while you were talking, you said Father Dan. I was like, is Father Dan hot? Because I got a thing, and I'm like, oh, it's Vincent D'Onofrio?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
like, and Kim Coates is Billy?
Yes.
I'm like, why am I not watching this show?
It's
I suck.
really awesome.
I gotta find this now.
It's so good. And it's got, like I said, it's got this B-movie horror to it. That just really plays well, and the actors really like they do it because they're really good actors.
Yeah, because like Kim was my favorite
Yeah.
in Sons of Anarchy, so I was like, oh,
yeah,
man.
no, he's Billy, and he has the relationship with Dr. Landis, who people will remember Kim. She was actually on not Stargate Atlantis.
He doesn't make out with-
Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so-
he doesn't make out with Walton Goggins in this.
No.
Oh man.
But yeah,
Maybe later.
it's still good.
Yeah.
I definitely, and like I said, every Thursday, next Thursday is the next episode, and people should check it out.
I know.
So it gets a season 2, y'all. It's a
yeah,
really good show.
I now have to check this out to make sure it gets a season 2 because I'm like, Kim and Vincent?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in.
And where can we find this?
Sci-Fi, the Sci-Fi Network, which is doing the darn thing because they've got Happy, they've got Ghost Wars. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I'm like, these are like good shows.
They're
I'm like,
rebranding really well in terms of the shows they're trying to get on. It's really good stuff. So
yeah, and that's what I guess with Chiller going out, this is where they're reimagining
Mm-hmm.
all their horror stuff and not making it as much, Sharknado is their cheese thing.
Yeah.
And they learned that works. But like, let's quit with these low budget sci-fi movies that aren't like as goofy as Sharknado.
alligator versus I don't know, tornado, something.
Yeah.
It's like that was kind of what sci-fi would always do, and those were good movies. I always watched.
They were always
them.
enjoyable.
They were always good B
Yeah.
to C horror pictures, but it's good that they're really going for this original content. Also, I've still got to catch up with Superstition, which is a supernatural show that centers around a black family, dealing with hunting demons and things, which is really cool for diversity and also inclusion. So yeah, they're really going after it right now, which is cool.
Yeah, that's the thing is, sci-fi is making a big resurgence, and but we love our nostalgia. And since I said last week for you guys, I would find out where the Midnight Society are now.
She kept her promise. Y'all.
Yes, and like I stayed up all night last night working on this, guys. I was surprised how hard it was to find some of these
We appreciate
answers.
it.
Yeah,
We appreciate it.
I'm like, because I was kind of curious too. I'm like, yeah, who were they? Because I remembered so many episodes. That's why I was like, oh, a lot of these people. I didn't remember Hayden Christensen being in one. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then I always, of course, knew Ryan Gosling, and Bobcat Goldthwait was in one of my favorites as the Sandman. I love him. And then Gilbert Gottfried, of course. But Jay Baruchel, I remember that he was in 3 or 4. I love him. And Ricky Maybe, who's been in the studio before. Yeah, he's great. And Jewel State. And, of course, we mentioned Melissa Joan Hart and Tatiana Ali earlier. But Nev Campbell and Tara Lipinski were also on there. And I'm like, I love Tara
They had a lot of
Lipinski.
stars come through,
Yeah.
future stars.
And Emily Van Camp was the one that I was like, oh, my God, because she is my girl. I will say one of my female celebrity crushes is Emily Van Camp. So I'm like, she started on there. And, yeah, it was her first gig. She did, 3 episodes, it said. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's cool, but those were your famous guest stars. But I found out where Gary, our founder, has been.
Where is he?
Ross Hall, who played Gary, he is now a meteorologist in Canada. And this is how I found out when I started seeing how all of these kids were from Canada for the most part. I'm like, was this show shot in Canada?
And
Yes,
it was.
Yeah, Montreal of all places, not even Vancouver.
I thought he was cute.
Yeah, those little
I dug
glasses.
the glasses. I did. I dug the glasses.
I know. I dug through my thing. I could not find those glasses to wear. I was like, no, all mine are big and chunky. Oh well. Couldn't pull off the Gary. But Gary wasn't the only original member of the Midnight Society. This is Kiki, played by Jodie Wrestler. She's most known for being Francine on Arthur till it ended. And Arthur apparently didn't end till 2016.
Oh no, it didn't. Yeah. It's. I mean, Arthur's one of the best PBS. No, best cartoons. Period. Not just PBS.
AARD.
I did not know that was. Now it makes sense. Now I totally hear her voice in my head. I did not know she was Francine. Wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing is she's not the only one. Several other cast members are also on Arthur through here, and Arthur apparently is well, it's like, I guess their voiceover studio is in Quebec.
Canada?
Yeah. And that was why I'm like, oh, this must be there because all
And
these
I
people
say,
have been.
hey,
Yeah. What a wonderful time
kind
of day. We learn to work and play
That is funny.
and get along with each other. And that was Ziggy
We
Marley.
should have played that in the
I
beginning.
know. I'm like, we needed the Arthur theme song. But yeah, there was also this guy, Eric, that was only in season 1, but this Jacob Tierney, because he looks very familiar to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a successful writer, director, and actor in Canada, and a frequent collaborator with Jay Baruchel. Like, I guess they kind of met on there, because Jay is also from Montreal, which I always knew, because he was a Canadiens fan. There's a lot of hockey references in here that I'll continue to make. But yeah, like Frank is the next guy, who is Jason Alasharan. He, is in the live action division of DreamWorks and is a producer now. He produced A Single Man with Colin Firth and Julianne Moore. That was the one I recognized.
Oh. It seems like a lot of them went behind the scenes after the show.
Yeah, that's the thing, is a lot of you'll see, because the next one, Betty Ann, the one we were talking about earlier, kind of the tomboyish one that was in the first run, was Rain Pare Cool. Very good French-Canadian name, kind of like mine. Is working at CBC, which is a Canadian TV station.
Yeah.
So yeah, she went behind the scenes as well. And then David was played by Nathaniel Moreau, and this was one where he did Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, and he was playing like David Carradine's character's like grandson, which is so cool. But like then he just went off the grid. There's like nothing
You
about
can't
this
find
guy,
anything.
and I'm like, I didn't even really remember his character, and I'm like, but he was so cute. And yeah, like, Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, and that's pretty cool. But that was it. It was what he left this for. Strange. But Kristen is somebody I actually recognize.
Oh, I do recognize her.
And I was
I
like,
didn't even say where I didn't even,
yeah, because this is Rachel Blanchard, and I remember her most in the Clueless TV
yeah,
show.
she was
It's
the
Cher.
clueless. Yeah, she was the Cher.
Yeah, and then she works pretty steadily, because it says she was on currently at DirecTV's Audience Network show, You, Me, and Her,
Oh,
about polyamorous relationship, I guess is what you'll call it.
okay.
Not really my cup of tea, but, that.
Yeah, I remember her from and that Clueless
Road
TV
Trip
series
she's
was
in too.
Yeah, and the Clueless series was on for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, and I had a little computer game that would always it was her instead of Alicia Silverstone because it was from
Yeah.
the TV series. I just remember I like Breckenmeyer. But yeah, and then of course the other successful one from the original one was Sam, Joanna Garcia Swisher, who like when the audience told us this last week, that clicked in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that was her. Because I love Joanna Garcia. To me, she's very much, kind of an Amy Adams type, but I just find her just very more genuine girl next door.
Okay.
I like her. And, of course, she's married to Nick Swisher of the New York Yankees and, seen in literally everything. But right now, Kevin probably saves the world. Yeah.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. And then Stig, which I don't even remember this character.
I don't remember him either.
I think I distinctly remember, like, the greasy hair or whatever.
He
but
reminds me of Tobias from Animorphs. If anyone remembers that show, probably not.
I
but-
loved Animorphs.
Oh, okay, that's what his cat. But I don't remember him.
Yeah, because Animorphs, I believe it was Sean Ashmore. Aaron Ashmore, who is, again, a friend of AfterBuzz, he was in this for, like, one episode.
Really?
Yeah, and he was Jimmy Olsen in Smallville. But, yeah, this guy is Cody Lucas Wilby, and he had went off the grid, like, immediately after that one season. But yeah, we're to like the reboot, and that's Tucker, which is the character we kind of remembered as Gary's little brother, of course.
He was the scrappy dude.
Yeah,
Of this.
the little scrappy dude, and like he came in during the original run, and then was the leader of the reboot. But this is Daniel DeSanto, which you guys
He's played and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Mean Girls was the biggest thing, and he was Gretchen's boyfriend. But yeah, you recognize him a lot, especially when he was younger. But yeah, he works pretty steadily because he's still cute. He still looks the same. But yeah, and Quinn was Kareem Blackwell, who I immediately recognized when
I
it
do
said
recognize
like
that
he was a
face.
Figure It Out panelist. And I remember that little game show.
Yeah.
But after that, he just went to normal life, and he's a firefighter now.
That's
so
awesome.
It's
That's
like
not
a real
nor-
man
that's,
job.
Yeah, that's awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's like he's a real man and a firefighter in Yonkers. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, Andy, played by David DeVoe, is yet another cast member that went off the grid after the show. I don't even remember this character either, I'll be honest. But yeah, and then we have two ladies that are definitely recognizable.
Oh, yeah,
the first one,
totally. I remember her.
The first one, you're not going to recognize her name, probably Vanessa Lingees, because I didn't either. But I was like, oh, she looks so familiar. But
Glee.
yeah, imagine, Glee. And then Mixology was a cute little show she did that lasted one season.
Yeah,
And
that was actually a good show.
yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
And then Waiting, the Ryan Reynolds movie, where they were waiters and gross waiters.
Oh, she was a 17-year-old.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, she was the cute young girl. But yeah, and you see her in a lot of stuff. And she was also on Arthur. She was, I think, the bunny.
Was she?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I'm like, what was the name of the bunny?
And of course, her.
Yeah, and Alicia Cuthbert, who, another Canadian actress. And also part of one of the least proud Dallas Stars moment. And again, we apologize. None of us wanted Sean Avery either. You are the fact that he called you sloppy seconds is still gross. But you married Dion Phaneuf, so yeah, that's awesome. And you're on The Ranch, which I don't particularly like, but
No.
I mean, Netflix gave it more seasons.
She's on one of the shows I really love, which is Happy Endings.
Oh yeah, that's actually
yeah.
one of my
God.
favorite shows.
Yeah.
Is Happy Endings.
Short-lived, man.
Yeah, I still watch it on Hulu all the time. And
Same.
Yeah, and then of course 24 is what most people recognize it from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love her. Like I didn't remember her starting out on this show either. But it's so funny because you remember all the spooky stories. But
yeah, you remember the
yeah.
stories more so than like we were saying last week. Than you actually remember the actual society, because like all I knew that popped up in my head initially was Gary was the one with the glasses. 'Cause
Yeah.
he was the leader. I didn't remember most of the rest of them, their names or anything. So, well, that's be interesting, and it would be interesting. I mean, and given that some of them are a little bit more high profile, maybe they'll probably be in the reboot, the movie version of it, which would be interesting to see if they kind of however it may shape up, I guess.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's certainly with a lot of the females, with Rachel Blanchard, Joanna Garcia, you have Alicia Cuthbert. Surely they could at least get them to cameo, because they would be recognizable. Although maybe more people are like us, like, oh yeah, we remember them from everything else they did.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah.
Caesar in the chat is saying that they're going to actually, because I mentioned the Animorphs, that they're rebooting the Animorphs as well. I don't know. Like, I just want them to leave my childhood alone.
I know. It's like, I was very glad that they did another Flash series, because I did grow up with, watching the 90s one. Like, there are some things that really work out well, but, like, never, ever reboot Buffy. That will be the one that I will kill you.
They won't do that. I mean, or maybe they'll do a thing where it's a continuation rather than a reboot. Because, they were actually thinking about doing Xena for a bit, too.
Yeah, which
And a
I
lot
would
of people-
love. Yeah.
I mean, I don't. That's my kind of
Yeah.
like your thing about not
Yeah.
doing Buffy. My thing is Xena. Like, it was fine the way it was, and people can go back and watch Xena. Like, it's not so dated that you can't watch the actual original.
And that's the thing is with Xena, if it were to be Lucy Lawless, then yes. But if it weren't to be Lucy Lawless,
and she's not gonna do it, so
then no.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reboots. I mean, it's one of those things where it's the question of, is there an original idea anymore? But I mean, every story's been told, so it's the same thing. Like I said, I'm totally gonna watch Sabrina when it comes out. I'm totally gonna watch the reboots, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is most TV shows are at least somewhat similar to another show, which is fine. But I mean, then there'll occasionally be a good gem that's really original, like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or something. But it is hard to find those things. And guess what? I mean, Eddie Van Halen said this about AC/DC, and I feel like it applies to TV shows. And I once referred to houses like this, but he said that AC/DC has been playing the same song for years, but it's a great song. And that's sort of the thing is, as long as it's good, it doesn't matter if it's the same old thing.
That's true.
But yeah, so I guess that is it for our show tonight. You guys just be sure to give us that thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Put a 5-star review there on iTunes. That'd be nice. We might even read it out loud on the next show if you do that. And also be sure to subscribe, like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I think we're on just about everything. Just find us somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm on all social media at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one. And where can they find you, Miss Chauncey?
You can find me on Twitter as well. This is Chauncey K. Robinson, and you can find me on Twitter at Miss Chauncey KR and Instagram at Miss Chauncey K.
All right, and be sure to watch us on the CW finales this week. I know I'll be there for Supergirl, for Legends, and then Supernatural the following Sunday, guys. I know it will be sad, but if you are still wanting to hear more about the CW shows, me and Lex Michael and Tari J, which you guys should know if you follow any of those, did a podcast for their Missing Out on iTunes. You'll find that it will be released on Tuesday, where we discuss the CW DC shows as a whole and how we got to Crisis on Earth X.
And I'll be talking about The Flash and also West Allen, per usual, next week.
All right, guys, have a good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.